Hello everyone, my name is Asa Sands, and welcome to another statistical anomaly video. This is part 2 in how to make a modern themed dashboard in Tableau Desktop. In this part, we're going to be covering how to make the pills on the left-hand side of the dashboard. I'll show you what I mean real quick. We're going to be making these pills on the side where when you click on them, they highlight. We're not going to do the actual highlighting part until later because that takes dashboard actions, and that'll be in part 3. But part 2 is essentially setting this left-hand menu up, which takes a lot more work than it initially appears. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, let's make the actual labels. So let's make a new sheet, drag it over here, and let's do genre labels for its label. So genre labels, what we're going to do is we're going to take genre, we're going to throw it into the rows, and then we're also going to throw genre into the text. It's because we don't want the header to be the thing that we want to be showing. We want it to actually be the text. Now this is in like a table format. We want to move this into more of a list format. You know, when you're writing down a list on a piece of paper, you do bullets, you do hyphens, you don't do tables. Nobody does tables unless they're using Excel or something. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this from automatic. We're going to change it to circle. Or change it to circle, my bad. But the thing is that it's technically not a graph. It's only in one dimension. In order to have a true graph, you need to have 2 dimensions. So we're just going to go minimum of 0, a very meaningless, very meaningless dimension. So then we're just going to get rid of this header, and boom, we kind of have our graph here. We're going to lower the size to as small as possible so they're not as in your face. And then we're just going to right click in any of this space over here, click format, and we're going to go to fill and worksheet none. We don't want it to have any kind of backfill. And then we're going to go to the lines section, and we're going to go none on these 4 categories: axis, ticks, rulers, 0 lines. And then we're going to go to columns, and we're going to click on grid lines and click none. So again, fill, this is going to be no worksheet fill. Then we're going to go to the lines, get rid of these bottom 2, get rid of these top 2, and then columns, make sure this top one is none. And you can see that when you make changes, it'll change from a standard font to a bolded font. So you can see I didn't change grid lines on this. I changed 0 lines, axis, rulers, and ticks, and those are bolded. The rest of them are default, so they're standard font. And if we go to columns, you can see only the grid lines is bolded because that's the only one I changed. And then rows, I didn't change anything on rows, so nothing is bolded. That's a little small detail there. So let's just click on the X up there, and now we have our genre labels. We're going to click on the label section here. We're going to click on the 3 dots. We're going to highlight all this, and we are going to change it to 14. I think it'll look good. Yeah. It doesn't matter what they look like here. You can stretch this out if you want to, if you have the patience to try and find that little hook there. But it doesn't matter what they look like here because we're actually just going to make them look different over here. Oh, we need to change this to floating and genre labels. We're going to hide the title. I'm going to drag this over here, and we're going to say fit to height by clicking on this little arrow, fit, and then fit height. So now we're just going to drag this down to right about here. Perfect. I really like that. So that's where our buttons are essentially going to be. That's the labels for the buttons. Let's get them a little bit closer to the edge. Yeah, maybe right there. That looks good. All right, so now we have our genre labels. Now we're going to go to the genre pills. So it's just make a new sheet, drag it over here, name it genre pills, and you'll see why I call them pills in a second, the button graphics. And we are going to start by throwing the genre into the rows. We're going to throw the genre again. We're going to again hide the header because we don't want the header. Then we're going to change this to actually a line graph. So we have this line, so we don't even have to worry about text. And then we're going to take them, actually before we do that, we need to do the 0s and 1s. So we right click in this space on the side here. We're going to right click, we're going to do create calculated field. This one's going to be 0, and we're going to put in a value of 0. So it's 0, 0. Isn't that amazing? And then we're going to click make a new one, and we're going to do 1. We're going to name it 1. Perfect. We're going to click on both of those and we're going to drag them into the dimensions, and then we're going to click on duplicate. So there's a duplicate, and then we're going to drag those duplicates down to the measures. It doesn't really matter which one's which. I just built mine so that the non-copies are in the top, and you can rename them so that they're not copies, but I prefer to have them as copies. So now we're just going to take measure values here. We're going to drag that into the columns, and we're going to delete everything that isn't one of those zeros or ones. So you can see we have 1 and 0 here. You need to change these though to be max. So there you go. Or sorry, just the 1. The 1 needs to be max. So you can see here 1 and 0. We're just going to hide the header because it doesn't really matter. We have these lines here. But you see we have this thing called measure names here. This measure names is in the details section. You can click on here and then change it to where you want, or you can click and drag it. I like clicking and dragging. I'm going to change it to a path. And boom, now we have horizontal lines. This is very, very important. Again, I'll undo that. So you can see here, we have 2 vertical lines. Just draw the measure names to path. Boom, now we have horizontal lines. And then again, we're just going to go min of 10 here. And that starts in the detail. We're going to drag that to size. I'll kind of show you what I mean. In size, if we drag this all the way to their max size, that's as large as we can make the pills. That's not large enough. Our text is just about that large, so we need to make it larger. So if we put a value to size, boom, all of a sudden our measures they're massive. They're utterly massive. And so now we can size them to be a more appropriate size. There we go. So I think that's a good size. All right, and that is our pills. Here's our pills. Now here comes the part that makes the pills actually highlight when you select something. Of course, the actual act of them highlighting when you select something is going to be an action, which we'll cover in part 3, but we need to make it able to interact with that. We didn't format this, so just right click in here, format. Oops, let's actually format this. So fill, we want none. In the lines, the same thing as last time. We don't want any of those 3 lines in the sheet and that 1 line in the columns. So there we go. Now those lines are gone. So let's get back. Now we need to do the most important part of probably the entire thing, and that's create our parameter. If we right click down here, which I mean you can right click anywhere, it's just parameters show up in this lower section, which is why I right click there. We're going to name this genre par, which is short for parameter. And we're going to change this to a string. And then we're going to change that string to action. Beautiful. All right. So a parameter, for those who don't know, a parameter is a user manipulatable value. So let's actually get to this here. Let's bring this over. Let's say that we're doing Tableau parameters. So create a parameter. Use parameters in Tableau. This will probably tell us what this is. Introduction. The variable that assumes no particular value but takes a value as passed or assigned by the user based on the context is a parameter. So yeah, that's a very good definition. So essentially, it's a value that doesn't really have a value, but I can pass values to it. Essentially, I can throw values at it, or I can just manually go in here, click edit, and manually change the value. So it's a manually changed value is what a parameter is. So that's really important, and we'll kind of get to why in a second. So now we're going to right click up here. Again, doesn't really matter where you right click along this bar, and we're going to make a calculated field. We're going to call this genre equals genre. The reason why is because we are going to check to see if genre is the same as genre parameter. So purple is always parameter, orange is always a dimension or measure. So we want to check to see if the genre is the same as the parameter. And if it is, since this equals this is just going to default to being a true false. You can see here it defaults to being true false. True false. It equals the same or it doesn't. So if it's going to check the parameter to see if the value in the parameter is the same as any of the values in genre, because it's checking genre. It's kind of like a little programming lingo where genre is technically a list. It's a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's a list of 12 things. And it's going to essentially go through that list and check, are any of these values the same as the value that's in the parameter? And the parameter can change. Remember, that's part of its definition. It doesn't really have a value, but it can change, and it can be assigned values. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to check every single genre for the value that's in parameter. And if it matches, it'll return a true. So if I drag this over to color, just kind of think ahead. What do you think is going to happen when I drag this to color? Let's see. It changed the top one to orange. Why is that? The colors are default. You'll notice that if Tableau does 2 colors, it always defaults to blue and orange. But what it's doing is it's essentially saying, let's check the value in parameter, which the parameter is action. See if we right click and do edit. Action is the parameter. It's called action. And it's going to essentially compare that to everything in genre. And it said, oh, this first one right here is action. They equal. They're the same. Boom. Changes it to true. The rest of these are false because this is adventure. That's not the same as action. If we change this to adventure, oh, I got to capitalize it. Boom. You can see this doesn't equal action. This doesn't equal adventure. This equals adventure. This is true. The rest of them are false. So that is how the coloring scheme works. We're just going to change this back to action. Perfect. So that's how parameters work. So now our genre pills are up and running. So now let's go to the modern dashboard. Let's bring over our genre pills. Let's hide the title by right clicking on the title and then click on the more things, floating order. We're going to send to back right here. And then we are going to tell it to fit height. Looks a little scrunched, but we get that right about there. Looks good. And then we are going to click on this genre labels. We're going to go to layout up here, and we are going to say it's 599 is the height. And just so that I can have it as a nice number, we'll set it to 600. And then we'll go back to dashboard, click on the genre pills, back to layout, paste in that 600, and boom, they are perfectly synced on height. And so now we can simply just drag this around so that it highlights right over it. Perfect. So now action is highlighted because action is selected. Of course, we don't have the actions hooked up, so when we click on adventure, it's not going to do anything, but eventually it will. So that is how we get the pills. Now, there's 2 other sets of pills that we have to make. We have to make the all, which is probably one of the most complicated ones. We're just going to name this all, and then we're going to do another sheet that's called the all pill. Every single time I read that, I think of like the All Father. It's the All Father. So the all. So let's go ahead and head to the all, and let's get started on how to make this. So all is what's going to allow us to essentially undo the filters that we add. Oh, we need to get rid of these legends. So when we click on action and filter by action, how do we undo the action of filtering by action? Most people would think, oh, you just delete the filter. Well, we can't really delete the filter. We can, but what this technique that we're going to be doing is instead of deleting the filter of filtering by action, what we're going to do is we're going to overwrite that filter with another filter that essentially says, don't filter by anything. So essentially we're going to replace the other filter with a filter that says, don't filter anything. And then when we click on adventure, we're going to say filter by adventure, and then click up here and it's going to be filter by nothing. Yeah, essentially what we're going to do, we're not removing the filter, we're replacing with a filter that says filter by nothing. So, or essentially don't filter. So that's how we're going to undo it. And that's what this all system is going to do. It's going to be a button that you press that will essentially add a filter of nothing so that you see everything. So from the user's perspective, it's as if you're removing the filter when you're actually kind of applying a filter. So that's kind of some logic that you need to be aware of. So let's go ahead and right click on here, create another calculated field, and we're going to name this all. Now this is where it gets a little complicated. I'm just going to open up my other one, and this is what it looks like. So that's the window that we're doing here. This is the one that I have in the other window. And this is if contains genre all, then none, else all end. A little complicated, but essentially this is an if statement. If contains returns true or false, or true technically, then return none, else return all, and then end is the little Tableau syntax. So contains, what it's doing is it's searching, as you can see here in the syntax, contains searches the string for the substring, and it returns true if the substring is in the string. So essentially it's contain genre all is a saying is all in genre, and if it is, return, or if it is, then return none, and if it's not, then return all. And of course, it's going to return all because all is not in genre. So we're just going to copy that. We're going to go to our window. We're going to paste it, and we're going to click OK. Boom, there's our all. We're going to throw this into the rows. And we need to make this to a graph because, again, we want it as like a bulleted list, so it needs to be a graph. So we're just going to go minimum of 0 again. Boom, now it's a graph. And we are going to go here, and we're just going to do a genre. And we're just going to do it as a string. Just quotes, genre. That's a string. We're going to do that to text. So that's our text over there. We're going to hide our headers. And then we're going to click in here to format. Same thing as before, the sheet. We don't want any background. And then we're going to go to the sheet on the lines. We're going to go none, 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 and columns, none. There we go. Change those 4 settings, and then get out of formats. Now we just have genre all by itself. And then we're going to go to circle, change the size down to 0. And there we go. We have genre on its little own lonesome, feeling all sad by itself. So let's give it a friend. Let's give it 0 in the detail. Makes sense so far? That 0 is going to become important when we're setting up our actions, but other than that, that's not actually changing anything. If anything, it's just throwing in 0 into the details, which kind of not really doing anything. So, and then later on, we'll go in here into the tooltip, and we'll just delete all this because we don't want anything showing up. So then when you highlight over it, it doesn't do anything. But we'll probably do that at the very end in our polishing stage. So there we go. Now we have genre. Let's actually go in here and make this. The other ones, I think we were size 14, so let's make this one size 15. And again, it's going to disappear because it's not wide enough, but it doesn't matter what it looks like in there. It only matters what it looks like here. So we're just going to hide the title. We're going to set it to fit the entire view, and we're going to put it right about there. I like it. So now we need to do the all pill. So the all pill is very similar to what we did before. What we're going to do is we're going to use the genre equals genre thing, except it's going to be all. So all equals all. And again, if we just kind of look at this over here, it's essentially checking to see if genre is the same as all. So we're just going to copy and paste that over. Okay. And let's close that. And there we go. Now we can throw all into the rows. And we're going to throw the measure values into the columns. And we are going to delete everything that isn't those two. And then sum just needs to be a maximum. And then we're going to change this to a line graph. And we are going to remove the headers. And you'll notice, why are they dots and not lines? Well, remember, this is only all is only one value. If you look at the modern dashboard, there's only one value in this. The action and the genre had tons of values. The genre just has one. It's just one. So we're just going to take these measure names, move it into path. Now we have this beautiful one line. Let's do min of 10 and drag that to size. So then we can click on this size and kind of set it to where we want, just so we can kind of see it. That's perfect size. And that is, oh, and then we need to do all into the color. All equals all. So now if it's true, it'll turn orange, and if it's false, it'll turn blue. There we go. That is our all pill. So now we just drag all pill over here. We right click it. Oh my goodness, we forgot to do something. All pill. We gotta get in here. We gotta format. We gotta get rid of the white background. And then the lines need to all go to none, just like we've done before. Perfect. Now it's clean. There we go. Looks much better. We're going to set this to fit the entire view, just so it's more predictable. And then we're just going to drag that right there. And then click on the arrow, floating order, send to back. Notice how it's a little separated from the others. It's exactly what I want. It's also, oops, I didn't mean to click on genre. Let's go back to all pill and drag that out a bit. There we go. That looks good. I want to indent it a little bit because technically action and adventure and all these genres are subcategories of genre. So let's get rid of these legends here, and that is the pills. Now we just need one more pill. We click the genre pills, and we're going to duplicate the genre pills, and we're going to call this genre pills hide. And we are going to go over here to modern dashboard, genre pills hide. We're going to drag this over. We're going to hide the title. We are going to fit the entire view, and we're going to go to layout and paste this as 600. So I think that's what the value was before. And there we go. Now it's the exact same height. What we're going to do is we're going to shrink this down to the most imperceptibly sized thing you've ever seen in your life. And then we're going to cover that dot. There. So now when we highlight over, oh, you can see the dot is still showing. See how when we highlight over it, that dot kind of shows up? This is meant to hide that dot. You can always make this a little larger if you have a hard time lining it up. Oop, actually, I clicked on it. So now we're a little high. It's definitely the hardest part. So let's just see, this Y is 183. Let's go to the all pill, or sorry, not all pill, genre pills hide. Genre pills, did I even highlight the right one? 184, there we go. And then genre pills hide, layout, 184. There we go. Now it's completely invisible, can't even tell it's there, but when you highlight over them, the dot is pretty much completely gone. If anything, I'm probably going to still widen you out just a tiny bit. Oh my goodness, this isn't letting me select it. But anyways, you kind of get the idea. I'll fuss with it later. There we go. So now it's completely hidden. You can't tell it's there. You can't see the dots. So it's kind of more of a standard button. And then eventually we'll get rid of those tooltips. So that is the buttons system. Again, feel free to change the colors to whatever you want. I'll probably go back through and change these colors to something that I like that kind of matches my light blue theme that I kind of want to follow. But you change it, you do you, and I will see you in the next one.